and welcome to Once Upon a Storybook with Cynthia. My name is Cynthia with Cynthia's Joyful Creations, and today we're going to look at another angel story from the book In the Arms of Angels by Joan Wester Anderson. And today's angel story is titled Caught. O passing angel, speed me with a song, a melody of heaven to reach my heart and rouse me to the race and make me strong. That is from Christina Rossetti. Jane and Pete Whitten lived in Gainesville, Georgia, but they also have a relaxation refuge, a 40-acre farm less than an hour drive away. There the Whittens, their daughters and son-in-law, grandchildren and friends can enjoy animals, nature, and even a Western-style village for the children to play in. The Whittens love to entertain because the farm is meant to be a haven from the rougher pace of the outside world. One weekend in January of 2000, Jane and Pete brought two of their 6 grandchildren to the farm, 8-year-old Lindy and her younger sister Savannah. The girls were looking forward to playing with the animals. In one holding pen closest to the house, we had a llama and some small goats, Jane says. They were going to stay in there with a sheepdog until they were big enough to go to the fenced 6-acre area where the larger animals were. On Saturday morning, however, it was snowing and sleet was also predicted. The girls played indoors, but by late morning, Lindy was bored. "Granny," she asked, "could I visit the animals?" "Honey, it's pretty messy out there," Jane pointed out, "and if you go over to the pastures, I won't be able to see you." "Can I just stay in the holding pen?" Lindy persisted. "You could see me there." "Well, all right." Jane reached for Lindy's coat. It would be all right. Lindy was obedient and wouldn't go farther than she should. As Jane was putting Lindy's boots on, however, something strange happened. A man's voice spoke into the kitchen loud and clear. "Look after the child. She could slip and fall and freeze to death." Astonished, Jane looked around, but there was no one there. It couldn't have been Pete. He was working on the back porch, building a mud area for shoes. And the voice wasn't his. And Jane thought he would have said Lindy instead of the child. The radio wasn't on, nor did Lindy seem to have heard anything. Puzzled, Jane zipped Lindy's coat and pulled the hood up over her little cap. Had it been her imagination? "Bye, Granny. I'll stay in the pen." Lindy waved as she bounced out onto the front porch. Jane went into her bedroom and raised the blinds to watch Lindy. Again the voice came, startling her. "Watch the child. She could fall and freeze to death." What was going on, Jane wondered. Was it some kind of bizarre practical joke? She had no sense of danger at all. She could see the entire pen, even inside the little shed where the animals ate and slept. Lindy had unscrewed the safety latch on the gate, gone inside, and carefully rescrewed the latch. She was happily patting a goat. Over the gate and all around the fence, Pete had put barbed wire so the llama would not jump out. The barbed wire was where it should be. The whole thing was a scene right out of Currier and Ives. Jane went back into the kitchen to start lunch. "Then I heard the voice again," she says. "It was getting louder and more forceful. I wondered if it might be my brother's voice. He had died suddenly 3 years ago and had sent me several signs, but it didn't sound like him. The voice was so stern." As if Jane were not paying attention, abruptly she made a decision. Lindy would have to come in until they could sort out this situation. Jane needed to tell Pete too, although he would probably think she was imagining it. She went back to the bedroom window, knocked, caught Lindy's attention, and motioned her to come inside. Lindy nodded. It had started to snow heavy again, and she'd be getting wet anyway. Jane made some sandwiches, still bewildered. A few minutes passed, and she noticed that the snow had turned to sleet. Suddenly, the voice came for the 4th time, louder and compelling. "Look after the child." Where was she? "Lindy!" Jane ran to the door. It was snowing harder now, and she could barely see through the whirling flakes. Lindy was not on the porch. Removing her boots, "Lindy, come in now," Jane called into the whiteness. "Your mom won't want you to get wet." "Granny!" Lindy's little voice floated across the yard. Why was she still in the pen? "Lindy, come now," Jane called. "Granny, help!" Frantic in her stocking feet, Jane jumped off the porch. Then as she ran through the sleet she saw her granddaughter. Lindy was caught on the gate, hanging by the back of her coat about 18 inches off the ground. Her hood was off, her head forced back, catching the full brunt of the sleet. I could tell that she had been kicking and throwing her arms out, trying to rip the jacket off to free herself, Jane says, but it wasn't working and she was getting cold and weak. Dear God! Jane ran to her and tried pulling her out of the coat, but it wouldn't tear. "Wrap your legs around me so I can lift you," she told the exhausted child. With the last of her strength, Lindy did, and Jane was able to unhook her. I leaned over her to try and shield her from the frozen rain as I carried her to the house. Jane says she was soaking and shivering. With dry clothes, warm blankets, and hot chocolate, Lindy revived quickly. Pete and Jane hung on her every word as she explained what had happened. "The latch was frozen and it wouldn't open, Granny," she said, "so I tried to climb over the gate instead." She had slipped and fallen, getting caught on the barbed wire and hanging helplessly in the air. "I couldn't get any screams out," Lindy explained, "and I couldn't breathe too well." She could have died, Jane thought numbly, if she had been out there much longer with water running into her nose. "So, Granny, I asked my guardian angel to come and get you," said Lindy. "Did he?" The voice. Who else could it have been but Lindy's angel, repeatedly trying to warn her about the impending accident? "Oh, yes, sweetheart, he did," she told her grandchild. "He certainly did. I truly believe angels watch over all of us," Jane says, "but we must listen to them." She thanks God each day that she did. I hope you enjoyed this angel story about little Miss Lindy and her grandmother Jane and her guardian angel. This has been Once Upon a Storybook with Cynthia's Joyful Creations. And until we come together again, be joyful, everyone, and I will see you on the next Once Upon a Storybook as we look at another angel story.